Your presentation of national sports is brought to you by Spreaker.com. Broadcast and listen to news, radio, and music with one low monthly rate. Your show will be right back after this word from your local stations.
Miami has the Dolphins, the greatest football team. We take the ball from goal to goal like no one's ever seen. We're in the air, we're on the ground, we're always in control. And when you say Miami, you're talking Super Bowl, 'cause we're the Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins #1. Yes, we're the Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins #1.
That is right. The Miami Dolphins won this weekend, and they beat the New England Patriots. I am a very happy man, as you can tell. I'm so happy. God, you heard me ranting last week about how the Dolphins were going to win, and all the haters were going to look, and they were going to say, oh, wow, the Dolphins won. It's nothing. They just beat, it's whatever. They beat the Patriots. Only week one. It's week one, and they looked good beating the Patriots. They didn't just beat the Patriots. They looked good doing it. With that, welcome into the Coast to Coast Show. I'm Jeremy Schnell, alongside Ian Martin. Hopefully, Isaac Glasser can join us. And we won't be starting with the Dolphins today. We'll be actually starting with two teams that made it to the Super Bowl last year. First, we're going to talk about the game that the Seahawks played last Thursday night against the Packers. Ian?
Yeah, this game really just stood out to me. It was the typical Seattle Seahawks game. We saw all last year, and we see it even when the Seahawks played the Denver Broncos, a high-powered offense against the Legion of Boom and those guys, and the offense gets shut out. The Legion of Boom is like Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless have started to realize this Legion of Boom thing is real. It's not just a bunch of guys who decided, oh, we're cool, let's call ourselves LOB.
LOB.
They're the real thing. They're the best secondary in all of sport, or all of football, my bad.
Now, Russell Wilson didn't have the best game passing, yardage-wise, but efficiency-wise, had a heck of a game. His QBR was 66.8, not the best, but his quarterback, his attempts to actual completions, 19 to 28 was his ratio. And also, running the football, Russell Wilson carried the ball 7 times and 29 yards doing it. He's one of those mobile quarterbacks in this league that you look at and you say, this guy is a dual-threat quarterback. He's the meaning of a dual-threat quarterback, is he not, Ian?
He is. I'm not sure you'd say he's such a runner. He's not like Colin Kaepernick, where Colin thinks that he can go run and he can put up points but just by running the football. Russell scrambles. He avoids pressure, gets out of the pocket, moves around, kind of like what Big Ben does. Creates time for his receivers, and if they're not there, he runs down the field. We saw it all last year. That's why Russell Wilson is so good. He's so dynamic in that aspect of the game.
And now, one of the quarterbacks that everybody looks to and says, this guy is going to put up at least 200 yards in any game that he plays in. Aaron Rodgers, right? Passed for 189. This is proving that the Legion of Boom is no fluke.
It really is. Anytime you can hold a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, who, in my mind, is the second best quarterback in the NFL, only to Peyton Manning, who the Legion of Boom held to 8 points, and those 8 points were in garbage time in the end of the third quarter, very last play. Aaron Rodgers did nothing against this team. Granted, he didn't have much help from his running game. The team only had 80 yards and were averaging 3.8 yards a carry. Still, Aaron Rodgers couldn't do anything against this team.
He didn't want to throw to Sherman.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. Byron Maxwell stepped up. He was going against one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL, against wide receiver and good receivers like Jordy Nelson and Randall Cobb, who are big play receivers who are capable of having big games and big seasons. And Byron Maxwell shut them down for the most part. there were no touchdowns among the top wide receivers for the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, you said it best. But, this team is just an all-around great team, and I wouldn't be surprised. We'll talk about this later on, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Seahawks make it back to the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah, I wouldn't be either. A lot of people are saying, "Oh, just because you won the Super Bowl, you're automatically out. We can't pick you to win the Super Bowl now." But this team is, I'm saying it now, will be the first team since the 2003-2004 New England Patriots to repeat.
All right, now we're getting a little ahead of ourselves there, Ian. We'll talk about that right after we talk about Peyton Manning and these Broncos playing against the Colts on Sunday night. Colts made it close in the end, man. That I just wanted to go to bed. I was tired. It was 31-10 at the start of the fourth quarter. With 9:54 left, the Broncos went up 31-10, and you thought, okay, this game is over, whatever. But then no. The Colts decide to come back. They get a 41-yard touchdown from Dwayne Allen, 31-17. Then, just 4 minutes later, Hakeem Nicks gets a touchdown, 31-24. Then, the Colts get the ball back with a little under I think it was about 2:30 left in the game. And they go for it on fourth down, and they miss it, and the Broncos get the ball back, and the rest is history. But this game was a blowout up until 7:46 left in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, you're really right, Jeremy. This is just the Peyton Manning style, I think. He gets out to an early lead. I'll draw a comparison to the New England Patriots game. Last year, I believe it was Sunday Night Football, when Denver went up 24-0, and New England came back and won it, I believe, in overtime, if I'm remembering correctly. But this Peyton Manning team, they just get out to such a hot start. I mean, I'm looking at the scoreboard right now. 3 straight touchdown passes to Julius Thomas, all in the second quarter. And Indianapolis just looked stunned that their defense allowed this and that their offense was doing little to nothing, putting up only 7 points in the first half. But this Peyton Manning, we saw this in the Super Bowl, he is not the clutch quarterback that his brother Eli is. you may be wondering, Eli's not that clutch.
Eli's won 2
Super Bowl.
There you go.
How many has Peyton won? 1.
No, I mean, that's 1 more than me. That's 1 more than you.
It is 1 more than me. I'll probably win 0 in my professional football career. That's going to happen someday. But I just don't... I'm not astounded by this Denver Broncos ability to finish games and their defense able to hold a team and shut them out. I'm really not happy with that.
Yeah, now the problem that the Colts face in this game is that they turned the ball over twice, and you're not gonna win this game against the Denver Broncos if you turn the ball over. You should not be able to. It's just not legal. It should not be legal to give Peyton Manning a chance to have the ball when you could be driving down the field and scoring a touchdown.
That's a really good point. That's another step towards that Peyton Manning jumping out to an early start and capitalizing on mistakes by the opponents. That's one thing that this Denver Broncos team does really well. They're all experienced. They've been to the Super Bowl now, and they have one of the best quarterbacks to ever play the game, Peyton Manning. And a guy like Peyton Manning is going to capitalize on these mistakes.
Julius Thomas, in a span of a year, man. In a span of a year and a half, he went from being no one ever knew his name to right before the season, everybody's like, oh, there's Julius Thomas, watch out for him. And then he's just blown up over the past year now, and he had 3 touchdowns and 104 yards in this game.
Yeah, I have Julius Thomas on my fantasy football team. I am more than happy with him. But
yeah, go ahead.
Anytime a Denver receiver, or not Denver receiver, an NFL receiver can put up 7 receptions for 104 yards, I think any team in the NFL would take that out of anybody. But he also has 3 touchdowns, and he can block well. We should start throwing Julius Thomas into this conversation with Jimmy Graham, Rob Gronkowski, and those guys as the best tight end in the league.
Absolutely.
These guys are all basketball tight ends, I'll say.
Yeah, but Julius Thomas has to have an 1,000-yard season. In my perspective, my opinion, Julius Thomas should have a 1,000-yard season before we put him into this discussion with Jimmy Graham and Gronk, and even Antonio Gates before he declined.
Yeah, that's a good point, but I don't really think that a tight end needs to be able to put up 1,000 yards.
I mean, Jimmy Graham did.
Yeah, but how often does Jimmy Graham play in the slot? How often does Jimmy Graham go out for passes? He goes out, I believe, quite a bit more than Julius Thomas does, which allows Jimmy Graham to go and get 1,000-yard seasons. I'm not taking away anything from Jimmy Graham. He's a fantastic athlete and a fantastic NFL football player. But I think if you put him on a team like the Denver Broncos, granted he's still going to put up big numbers just because of his athletic ability. I just don't think he's going to be able to put up 1,000-yard seasons.
All right, now the discussion that we were trying to get to earlier when I was trying to put it off until right now, the Broncos and the Seahawks. You kind of gave away who you think is going to get back to the Super Bowl out of these two teams. But do you also think the Broncos will get back there?
I'm not sure if the Broncos will get back there just because of the Indianapolis Colts. I think they're much improved. Even after losing to the Denver Broncos, the New England Patriots look to be good again, even though they lost to your Miami Dolphins. That's another team. The AFC has gotten a lot better over the past couple months since last season ended. And I just don't see how Denver can run away with this division and secure a number 1 seed. The only way Denver can get back to the Super Bowl is if it goes through Mile High Stadium. Just like if the Seahawks secure the home field advantage and everything goes through the Northwest, the Seahawks are going back to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, no question about that. Yeah, obviously, if the Seahawks get home field throughout the whole playoffs, then they're going to the Super Bowl. I think a lot of people would agree with that statement.
Yeah, Skip Bayless does.
Mm-hmm. And there's just no other atmosphere like it. It's not just the Seahawks. I'll reiterate what I've said. It's not just the Seahawks when they play at that stadium, but it's that stadium and how it's aerodynamically designed. The Seattle Sounders have the same type of atmosphere. People don't realize that is one of the best atmospheres I've ever been in my life, a Seattle Sounders soccer match. And that's saying something. I've been to playoff hockey games. I've been to Seahawks games. And it just doesn't compare. Nothing else compares to the atmosphere that CenturyLink Field brings to the table, and the Seattle fans, for that matter.
It really is one of a kind stadium. A lot of people will say, "Oh, like you just said, it's built for sound."
Yeah,
it was built to affect opposing teams, but it's not just that. The fans are avid. Everyone in this team loves the Seahawks and the Sounders. Even now, the Mariners. I think we'll get into that a little bit later. I've been a season ticket holder for the past 10 years, and now the city of Seattle is starting to bustle because these Mariners look like they're going to make the playoffs, which they haven't done since 2001, 13 years ago. I'm going to say this now. The city of Seattle is quickly becoming one of the best sports cities in the nation.
Yes, absolutely.
Now all we need is a basketball team.
I
don't.
I think the hockey team will happen before the basketball team.
Yeah, I agree. So, Jeremy, what do you think is the only setback from the Denver Broncos getting back to the Super Bowl?
The only way they wouldn't is if someone comes into Mile High and beats them, I think. I think they get the number one seed. I don't see any other team in the AFC. I was looking at the AFC today. I was looking at all the teams in it, and I was comparing them all to the Broncos, and I don't see any team that can beat out the Broncos for that number one seed. I really don't.
Now, what about the Seahawks? I know you're a Seahawks fan. This might be a little biased, just like I have a little bias towards the Seattle Seahawks. But is there any way that the Seahawks don't make it to the Super Bowl?
I mean, if they get the number 2 seed, if they get the number 3 seed. But I don't know who that team would be. And, if they obviously if they don't get the division, if the 49ers or the Cardinals have a great season, the Seahawks don't, or I think the Seahawks are obviously going to make the playoffs. But if they don't win the division, the Seahawks, then they're going to be in a lot of trouble. Because that's the toughest division in football, no doubt about it.
I'm not sure I would even say that now, because after watching that game last night between the the San Diego Chargers and the Arizona Cardinals, these Cardinals aren't looking too good. They've lost a couple key players on defense to injuries and to free agency. Larry Fitzgerald is a year older. Carson Palmer's a year older. Granted, they have a young wide receiver in Michael Floyd who's shown tremendous skills and production, and a hopeful running back, Andre Ellington, who is looking to put up big numbers this year. This defense isn't good enough to stop these NFL offenses. The San Francisco 49ers, their defense has gone down the toilet of late.
Yeah.
Even though they held the Dallas Cowboys to 7 points, I believe it was.
17
points.
But they also forced 4 turnovers, but that's not saying much since they played against Tony Romo.
But when the Arizona Cardinals have to go up twice against the Seattle Seahawks and the San Francisco 49ers, it's really going to show this team's true colors, and I don't believe they are as good as everyone depicts them to be.
The Cardinals?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they're a pretty good team. I don't know if... I think they got better than last year, and they came into Seattle and beat the Seahawks in Seattle last year. So, I think they're better than last year. I think they went out and got some pretty good players this offseason, and I think they did very well in the draft this year. Just watch out for this team. Don't underestimate them.
Well, now, Jeremy, I think we can move on to our next section. His last name is a quality food item. I have a jersey of him. I plan to burn it on Friday. Ray Rice.
Okay. I don't have much to say about him.
If you don't know, Ray Rice has been suspended indefinitely by the NFL, and the Baltimore Ravens have terminated his contract, and EA Sports took out Ray Rice from the new EA game Madden 15. And
it's a little much.
The Baltimore Ravens are refunding Ray Rice jerseys.
If for those of you who haven't seen the video yet, I mean, it made me sick to my stomach to watch it. At first, I was very upset, and I felt like that the punishment handed down by terminating his contract and suspending him indefinitely wasn't even enough. But now I've come to my senses, and I think about your lowest moment. I'm talking hypothetically. Your lowest moment put out there and shown to the world is going to be received just like Ray Rice was received for what he did. If that was the lowest moment in his career, then I mean, in his life, that must be devastating for him, because think about it. If your lowest moment was broadcasted to the world to see, I mean, do you think that was his first time abusing his fiance/wife?
It's got to be. No way. It's a repeated offense.
I mean, exactly. So, and he apologized for his actions. He obviously overreacted. He, before this, was seen as one of the people in this league who go out into the community and give back and care about their fans and everything like that. And now all that's just out the window because of this thing that he did. I'm not trying to sugarcoat anything. I'm not trying to say that domestic abuse isn't as bad as it is. But obviously he made a mistake, and people have to realize that put yourself in his shoes. Think about your lowest moment, and think about how you would feel if that was broadcast to the world, and what the backlash would be. That's what is happening to Ray Rice.
That's a really good point. At this time, I think we can shoot it on over to the hunt for October.
What? We're not gonna talk about all the games in the NFL?
Nah, we got to talk about the hunt for October.
Oh, and then we got to go back to the NFL.
And the Seattle Mariners, and the Oakland Athletics, and the Detroit Tigers.
And the Pittsburgh Pirates, and Atlanta Braves, and Milwaukee Brewers, and the Miami Marlins. Almost slipped there.
The Marlins?
Yeah. 4.5 back.
Well, we'll get to that. Let's just start out with your National League.
Yeah.
Right now, the 2 wild card slots look to be San Francisco and Pittsburgh, as of now.
Pittsburgh is tied with Philadelphia right now, and the Marlins are tied with Milwaukee right now. In their games, respective games, sorry.
Pittsburgh looks to be hot. They've won 4 straight. While San Francisco is 7-3 in their last 10. And a couple games back is the Atlanta Braves. They're 1.5 games back. But they've started to lose their way a little bit. They've lost 2 in a row. They're 4-6 in their last 10. And then you have the Milwaukee Brewers, who are really stinking up the joint over the last 10 games. 1-9.
They've lost 13 out of their last 14.
They fell out of that first place in the NL Central, and now it doesn't even look like they're capable of making the playoffs. This team has just lost all hope. They look almost like a Little League baseball team among Major League Baseball team. And we have your Miami Marlins, 4.5 back. The Marlins won 2 in a row. Looks like they need to start making a push now. There's 15, 16 games left in this season.
Well,
really got to make a push soon.
They got MVP candidate Giancarlo Stanton, and if he doesn't get the MVP this year, then I think it's obviously, right when I say that, he catches the fly ball in the outfield. That's kind of funny. But anyway, if he doesn't get the MVP this year, it's going to be a catastrophe, because he has played out of his absolute mind this year. You want to listen to his stats right now? Because I honestly can't even contemplate.
I have him.
291.
291. Wow.
37 homers. How many RBI?
105.
Leading the league in RBI. Not just the National League, but both the National League and the American League in RBI. And his season so far has been compared to some of Babe Ruth's seasons and a lot of other amazing players in the past. So take a step back for a second. Giancarlo is tied with Dan Uggla for the Miami Marlins / Florida Marlins lead in home runs for a career. Giancarlo Stanton has some of the most majestic homers I've ever seen. I was there to witness his longest homer of the year this year, and let me tell you that right off the bat, you knew it was going out. And that's just how he is. Every time he goes up to bat, you have that in the back of your mind that Giancarlo Stanton is going to hit a home run here. You have a feeling Giancarlo is going to rip one out of the park. And so most of the time, when it's a big situation, he comes through. Earlier this year against your Seattle Mariners and my second favorite team, the Seattle Mariners. It was a Friday night. Giancarlo came up to bat, tie game, bottom of the ninth, bases loaded. Boom, grand slam, walk off, game over. He comes through in the clutch. The guy is amazing, and I just hope that if we don't make it to the playoffs this year, he sticks around for next year, because once we get Jose back, it's...
Now,
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry to cut you off. While you're on the topic of Giancarlo Stanton leaving, what do you think the chances are of Giancarlo Stanton leaving? I've heard that the Boston Red Sox are in the market to trade for him.
Dodgers.
New York Yankees, of course. The Dodgers. All these big market teams.
You know,
but then
I've always said, sorry to cut you off, but I've always said that eventually he's going to be a LA Dodger. Eventually, at some point. It's just going to happen. He wants to go back home. He wants to play where he grew up watching games. And that's respectable. But I'm just asking you, Giancarlo. And if you're listening to this, man, I know you're listening to this as you're playing your baseball game. Give me 2 more years. See what happens. And then from there, if you want to still leave, then go ahead. I'm okay with it. You gave me some of the best years of my life to watch baseball. But just give me 2 more years.
Now, I'm a Seattle Mariners fan. Mariners, over the past 13 years, have really sucked it up. Just like the Miami Marlins, except for good year here and there. Mariners have a deep farm system.
Absolutely.
They have a pitcher, Taijuan Walker.
Mm-hmm.
One of the best prospects in the league. He showed outstanding he played outstanding so far this year. Do you think the Miami Marlins would trade Giancarlo Stanton for a young pitcher and a couple young bats?
No.
And what do you think is the only way? He is not in a contract year, correct?
I'm not technically sure about that. I think he could leave if he wanted to at the end of this year, but I think they're going to sign him.
Okay, so
yeah,
let's say he doesn't sign. Besides the Los Angeles Dodgers, who do you think is the second team on Giancarlo's mind?
I mean, it's really far away because the Dodgers. I think it's Dodgers, Marlins, and then it's the Yankees.
Him in a pinstripe.
I mean, it's just one of the smallest parks in the world, and he's a power hitter. Wouldn't you love to hit there?
That would create some amazing numbers.
Yeah.
Now, Jeremy, let's head on over to the AL. Actually, no. Cut that. Who do you think is going to end up with these 2 wildcard spots?
No, I hope it's San Francisco and Miami, but on the off chance that it's not, I think it's going to be San Francisco and Milwaukee, because Milwaukee is just a team that's been there this whole year, and I don't see them falling totally apart. I see them making the playoffs just barely if the Marlins do not make it.
Now, like I said earlier, the Milwaukee Brewers have really kind of started to lose it. They've lost their mojo, as one would say. They're 1-9 in their last 10. Is that just because of fatigue, or have they just lost their way and just lost the Milwaukee Brewer kind of baseball.
They just ran into some tough teams. The Cubs are a team that people have slept on, but they have a lot of young talent, and could be a bracket buster if you'd like for this postseason. But they like to ruin people's chances at making the postseason, and they did that last week in sweeping Milwaukee, and then Milwaukee runs into St. Louis for 4 games. And now they have to play the Marlins.
A team comparable to the Chicago Cubs, a team that almost has the exact same record, the Houston Astros, who took 2 out of 3 from the Oakland Athletics and are playing the Seattle Mariners tonight. Now, we've had our National League wild card predictions. Let's head over to the NL division. Just the big picture in the NL.
Yeah, that's easy, though.
You think we'll stay the same? Washington winning the East, St. Louis winning the Central, and the Dodgers winning the West?
Absolutely. St. Louis has been really hot of late. 9 out of their last 10 games they've won. Yeah, they're a very good ball club. Continue to be a very good ball club. That's an amazing farm system that they have going there.
Yeah, it really is one of the best, I'll say, of all time.
Yeah, absolutely. No question.
Now, we're done with the NL. Let's throw it out the window.
Yeah.
The American League. Right now, the Oakland Athletics and the Seattle Mariners are tied for the first wild card spot.
No.
Actually, no, they are not. That is my bad. The Mariners are half a game back.
1 game.
Half a game.
It says 1.
1 game. My mistake, ladies and gentlemen. I'm looking at something that is lying to me, apparently. Then in the third place, we have the Detroit Tigers, who are half a game back of the Seattle Mariners. And then we have Cleveland Indians, New York Yankees, and Toronto Blue Jays quickly falling behind.
Ugh. Poor Yankees. Poor Yankees with Derek Jeter in his last season.
Really would have been a great story if they could have made the playoffs.
Yeah, oh well, it's the Yankees. What you gonna do about it?
Jeremy, the Seattle Mariners are in a 3-game series right now with the Houston Astros, who we have kind of depicted as bracket busters.
Yes.
Let's just say the Mariners win 2 out of 3 from the Houston Astros. Mariners have already won 1 out of 3 so far. This weekend, maybe the biggest series in the wild card standings, if I'll say it like that. The Oakland Athletics are coming to Seattle.
Wow.
Where in Safeco Field, where the Mariners play, there will be 45,000 Seattle Mariners fans who have not seen a meaningful baseball game in September since 2001 and 2002.
That is going to be one of the biggest series you will see in a long time.
It really is.
That series is going to be huge. And you know what? Felix is pitching Saturday night.
It is the top 3 for each team.
Felix Hernandez against Sonny Gray, Saturday night at 9:10. Tune into that one, folks.
You really need to. That game is going to be one of the better games of the year. 2 of the best pitchers in the American League.
Yeah.
And also in that series, Chris Young, who's a candidate for Comeback Player of the Year, Jason Hamill, who's pitched surprisingly well, and then John Lester going up against an unknown for Seattle. Hopefully it's James Paxton.
Yeah, what's going on with him?
They're giving him 6 days off, but...
Oh, okay. Yeah.
How much...
It's huge. The Mariners need to get home field for that wild card game. They need it because Felix pitching in that wild card game at King, because they set it up so that Felix will pitch in that wild card game. I already did the math. It's gonna happen. So they need to have home field for that game because Felix at King's Court, that crowd will be going crazy. Everybody will be wearing gold, and they'll have their K cards, and it will be crazy, right?
Yeah, and if you don't know what the King's Court is, Felix Hernandez, his nickname is the King.
He's the real king. Don't talk about LeBron to me. Don't tell me LeBron's the king. Felix Hernandez is the king.
He's one of the best pitchers in baseball, and he's only 28 years old.
He's still... Oh, my God. That drives me crazy. That I can't believe that. He's going to be pitching for another 10 years.
10 years is a little long. He's already been pitching for 9 years.
I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know. We'll have to see. He's one of the best pitchers I've ever seen in my life.
He definitely is. Now, Jeremy, if the Seattle Mariners cannot get that number one spot, do you see the Mariners going in to O.co, the Oakland A's stadium, and winning a one-game series against the Oakland A's?
Yes. With Felix Hernandez pitching, sky's the limit.
Well, you heard it, ladies and gentlemen.
No, but that lineup is just too good too. They got Robbie Cano. Ackley's been hot of late. They went out and got Austin Jackson at the deadline. I mean, also don't sleep on Kyle Seager, All-Star this year.
Kyle Seager's quietly putting up one of the better seasons for a third baseman in baseball right now.
Absolutely.
He's batting .275, 23 home runs, and 88 RBIs. He has a solid chance to bat .280, 25, and 100.
I expect him to hit over 300 next year.
Yeah, everyone does. He is. If you play a fantasy baseball and you need a fantasy third baseman, look no further than Kyle Seager.
Absolutely. You know what? First round pick next year, Kyle Seager.
I agree. Now, let's just say here's another what if scenario. I'll pitch at you, Jeremy. What if the Seattle Mariners play the Oakland A's one more time for a 3-game series, and they play the Los Angeles Angels, who are, some say, the best team in all of baseball, 6 more times? But if the Mariners
7
do
more
not,
times.
What?
They play him 7 more times.
7.
Good math.
If the Mariners, doing my best, if the Mariners do get that number 2 seed, and let's say the Detroit Tigers come back and get that 1 seed.
Oh boy.
Can the Seattle Mariners beat the Detroit Tigers? Granted, the Seattle Mariners did beat Detroit 2 out of 3 in Detroit.
Now, it depends on who's pitching. Now, if it's Scherzer, then I say no. But if it's Price, I say yes. Price hasn't had that great of a year this year. People were talking about how good he is and how 3 aces are going to Detroit and blah, blah, blah. Verlander, David Price, and Scherzer. But I think Scherzer's the best pitcher out of those 3. And, if Scherzer's pitching, I don't see the Mariners beating him.
Really? Because what I see in my mind, we definitely have different opinions about this, and they're just equally as valid as one another. The Seattle Mariners are a very left-handed batting organization.
Right.
You look up and down the lineup, almost every night it's a left-handed batter, except for Mike Zunino and Austin Jackson. Now, I truly believe David Price is a top 5 pitcher in the MLB, and Max Scherzer is not. Just because David Price is a left-handed hitter. or a left-handed pitcher, I'll say.
Yeah, but it's Scherzer. Come on.
I don't care. A good left-handed pitcher is always better than a good right-handed pitcher, I'll say. I'd much rather have David Price than Max Scherzer on my team.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, Price is 12-8 this season. And Scherzer, what is Scherzer this year?
I don't have the numbers up. Let's just say he's having a good season.
He's having just as good he had a lot of wins last year, but I think he's getting up to that 20 mark again, I think.
Ooh, that'd be quite a stretch for Scherzer. So now, Jeremy, just like we did in the National League, we're going to go division by division and see who wins each division. Started out, the American League East, Baltimore has run away with this division, 10 games up on the New York Yankees and Toronto Blue Jays. Looks like they're going to win it. They really have to falter to lose this one.
Yeah, absolutely. I no arguments there.
In the Central, this is maybe the toughest race in all of baseball. There's 3 teams capable of winning this division right now. The Kansas City Royals, who are leading the division right now. Detroit Tigers, 1 game back, and then the Cleveland Indians are 5 games back. Kansas City's been the story of the second half. They have a team that can crush the baseball.
Yeah.
But then you have a team like Detroit, who has a much improved pitching staff and a little deeper of a bullpen. Still not a great bullpen, but a better bullpen. And yet we have the Cleveland Indians, who would have to work some magic, I'll say, with Corey Kluber to get back to the postseason. Who do you think is going to win this division, Jeremy?
People aren't giving Kansas City the respect they deserve. Now, on that note, I'm not going to give them the respect they deserve. I think Detroit wins this division. I think they win it by about 3 games. Kansas City doesn't even get into the playoffs in my mind. They just don't have a veteran presence on that club that can lead them to the postseason in my mind.
So you think the Kansas City Royals will fall out of the playoffs completely?
Absolutely. Because, I think the Mariners and the A's are going to win those wild card spots. So that leaves Kansas City out to dry. Now, I'm not saying that they're not going to end with a good season. They're going to end with over 80 wins, obviously, with 79 wins at this point. But they're just not going to make the playoffs, in my mind.
Well, you heard it from Jeremy Schnell, folks. Now over to the AL West. This, just like the AL East, looks to be out of hand. The Los Angeles Angels are looking like the team they should have been when they first signed Albert Pujols and Josh Hamilton. A team that's won 88 games, good chance of winning 100 games. They've won 5 in a row, and they're 8-2 in their last 10. Is this team capable of making a deep postseason run, even with a hurt pitching staff without Garrett Richards, their ace? Does this pitching staff have enough left in them to really take this Angels team into the World Series, I'll say?
Not necessarily the World Series, but I think they'll go far in the playoffs. Don't sleep on Shoemaker. Shoemaker's a really good pitcher. Wilson is average in my opinion. They still have Weaver. Now, Rasmus is actually Colby Rasmus's brother is one of their starting pitchers. He was coming out of the bullpen a couple weeks ago. They put him in to start now, and now he's the starting pitcher for that club. So he's 3-1. And as a starting pitcher this year, I'm not positive how many games he started yet, but Corey Rasmus is a pitcher to watch too. So they have a decent pitching staff. I think that's where they draw the line. Maybe they go with a 3-man rotation in the first round.
So you leave out the bottom 2 guys, but how much is left in their tank? If this series does go to a seventh game, does this bullpen have enough left in them? Or this team, this pitching staff, do they have enough left in them?
Pitching staff, yes, but I'm not sure if I buy in to the whole Pujols-Hamilton thing necessarily. Hamilton has been amazing on the road this year. Let me pull up the stats real quick, because do you know something about Mr. Josh Hamilton? Ian, I'm going to tell you what's going on with him this year real quick. He has hit 1 home run at the Big A this year. 10 home runs, or 9 home runs away from home. 1 home run at home. Or excuse me, he has 0 home runs at home this year. So, away from home, he has 28 RBI, 10 homers, and his batting average is .278. At home, or his totals for this year are .263, batting .263, 10 homers, 44 RBI. So he is playing terrible at home, and if the Angels keep playing like they have been playing and get home field advantage, it's not going to be so much of a home field advantage for Mr. Josh Hamilton. Ian?
Yeah, this team, when the Los Angeles Angels went out and signed Albert Pujols, Josh Hamilton, and had the coming of Mike Trout, the era of the Trout, we'll say, this team looked poised to go to the World Series and win multiple World Series. He looked like Ken Griffey Jr.
Yeah.
Looked like that Mariners team, the team that won so many games, but just never won the World Series. This is what I think this team will turn into, just because all these teams in the AL, or I'll say the biggest threat to Los Angeles Angels in their World Series hopes will be in the divisional round against the wild card winner, which will be the Seattle Mariners if they make it to the playoffs. And the Seattle Mariners will walk away with that series.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what, Ian? We're going to step away now from all this Major League Baseball talk, and we're going to get back to the NFL. But before we do that, we're going to take a quick break, because we got to gather our thoughts a little bit. We've been talking a lot of sports, and you know what? We got to get back into the NFL grind. Don't you think, Ian?
We have to.
What do you mean we have to? Or is that like do we have to? Or is it like, yeah, we have to? Is it like rallying up the troops?
Yeah, we have to.
Yeah, let's go. All right, we'll be right back after this.
Contact National Sports in a number of ways through Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter with the label National Sports. We love to have you guys a part of our show and can easily join us also through text or call. You're listening to the National Sports radio station on Spreaker.com.
Welcome back to the Coast to Coast Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Schnell, here in Miami. Across the country, if you didn't get it, the Coast to Coast Show, we have Ian Martin in Seattle.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, so that's where the Coast to Coast Show comes from for all you newcomers. Anyway, we're going to do what we do here on the Coast to Coast Show. We're going to talk some football. That's right, we're going to recap
Football.
week 1. Yeah, the Miami Dolphins facing off against the New England Patriots. This game was full of turnovers, 5 in total. Brady fumbling twice and Tannehill throwing 2 interceptions. Still getting the win. Wait, excuse me. Tannehill only had 1 interception. Shortchange it. Or, no. Yeah, there. One interception there for Tannehill. Anyway, Dolphins win this one 33-20, playing very well in the second half, outscoring the Patriots 23-0 in the second half. Nosha Moreno, 134, 1 touchdown, 24 carries, showing everybody that he is an elite back in this league. Now, Tannehill didn't have his best game by any means, throwing terrible passes, making terrible decisions throughout the whole game, but his receivers really helped him out, and Nosha Moreno really put this team on his back, and also the defense came up really huge in the second half.
Now, Jeremy,
yeah, go ahead.
I'm looking at the Miami defensive unit right now, and I see Brent Grimes and Cortland Finnegan. Are these guys one of the elite cornerback tandems now? That we see the Legion of Boom, the Patriots, we could say the 49ers, possibly, the Arizona Cardinals, and the Cleveland Browns. Can Miami Dolphins, these 2 cornerbacks, Brent Grimes and Cortland Finnegan, start to be thought of in that manner?
Yeah, I think so, absolutely.
Now, let me ask you this, Jeremy. How much longer are you willing to bet on Ryan Tannehill?
I say one more season after this one.
In his career, he 59 completion percentage, 38 touchdowns to 31 interceptions. It's never a good number to see.
But he's had better numbers. He had better numbers than Andrew Luck in his first season.
That is true.
So he has a lot of potential. He makes some poor decisions. He might have had some nerves going in the first half, but in the second half he seemed to be calming down and making good decisions. He's got to figure out how to throw that deep ball.
Yeah, especially with players like Mike Wallace on the team, where Mike can run down the field.
Mike made Darrelle Revis look silly on one of these plays. He did a double move, was wide open in the end zone. Ryan Tannehill threw it over his head, and Mike Wallace couldn't get his feet back in bounds. Mike Wallace caught the ball. He couldn't get his feet in bounds for the touchdown. Easy touchdown. Couldn't get it. Now, Mike Wallace did get a touchdown in this game, but he made Tannehill look good on that play because Darrelle Revis almost deflected it away, and Wallace just snatched it out of the air for the touchdown. Now, Tannehill did a good job at spreading the ball around. He gave the ball to Deion Sims. He gave the ball to Brandon Gibson only once in this game, which really surprised me. Lamar Miller, we've seen him grow as a player that can really, how am I supposed? He's a player that can step out of the behind Tannehill and run screen plays. So he's a catching back too, receiving back. Because no, Sean can't really do that as well as Miller can. Miller had a receiving touchdown in this game. But I need to see more out of Charles Clay. Only 2 receptions for 27 yards. We need to get the ball to Clay more because he's a playmaker on this offense. And also we need to start getting that deep ball going. It's really repetitive saying Mike Wallace and Tannehill need to get on the same page, but it is true. It's true.
Jeremy, I want to ask you this. New England Patriots, I think everyone can agree, have dominated the AFC East for the last 10, 15 years. As long as Tom Brady's been on this team. Tom Brady's time in the league's coming to an end. He's getting up in there in age. Is the team to replace them Miami Dolphins?
I hope so. I mean, I can't say definitely because I'm really biased, and if I say that, it's going to be taken with a grain of salt, obviously, but I hope so. I think they have the talent to do so. It's just bringing that talent that they have from the practice field and putting it in at game time.
That's one of the key things to do in the NFL. A lot of these teams you see, oh, this team had such a great preseason, but look at them now, as Chris Brown would say. Look at them now.
They're getting paper.
Let's move on. I'm just going to jump around.
Yeah,
Matty Ice.
No. Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And the Atlanta Falcons hosting New Orleans Saints, Drew Brees, Jimmy Graham, Kenny Vaccaro, Darius Byrd,
Mark Ingram,
and the Atlanta Falcons beat the New Orleans Saints.
Against Mark Ingram and Drew Brees.
This game was, as people expected, high scoring. No one expected this to be a 7-0 game. These teams each are high-powered offenses with two high-powered QBs. Matt Ryan threw for almost 500 yards. He threw for 448 at the end of the game with 3 touchdowns. Drew Brees had an average Drew Brees night. He threw for 333 yards with a touchdown, and he did throw an interception. But the thing I want to touch on, Jeremy, last year the Atlanta Falcons went, 4-12, I believe it was.
Yeah, they played terrible. How about that?
They were a below average team.
Yeah, they wanted to get that offensive lineman.
Now, the Atlanta Falcons just beat New Orleans Saints, like I've said a couple times now.
Mm-hmm.
Julio Jones had a big game with 116 yards. Devin Hester, a name we haven't heard in a while.
Yeah.
Playing the receiver position, not just the return specialist.
They're going to put him into a role like Percy Harving is in.
It's going to be tremendous. And two teams, I'll just touch on this fast. Two teams who aren't known for running the football. Each had pretty decent days running on the ground.
Mark Ingram is keen to have a pretty good season this year. Watch out for him.
Yes. He's a power runner.
And also, sorry, to go to the other team real quick, the Falcons. Matt Ryan, he's going to have a breakout year. I think that people are going to look at Matt Ryan at the end of the year, and hopefully he'll be in that MVP discussion.
Well, we heard it. Jeremy Chanel is life. He knows all.
All right.
Each team had over 120 yards on the ground. Pretty surprising. Jeremy, what was your biggest takeaway from this, from the Atlanta Falcons or the New Orleans Saints? Which was the bigger takeaway? That
Matt Ryan throwing for 448 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Well, not everyone can keep it up like Matty Ice with a team as talented as the Atlanta Falcons, who have one of the best receivers in the league, are in one of the toughest divisions to play in football. That's shooting on over to the previous NFC South champions, Carolina Panthers, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah. Mr. Anderson starting that game, man, because Cam Newton decided to have a boo-boo in his ribs.
I have Cam Newton on my fantasy team. Not too happy about that one.
Yeah, me too. I feel you, man. That really bummed me out. I had to start. I had to start. What's his name? The quarterback for Kansas City.
Alex Smith.
Yeah, I had to start Alex Smith, and he played terrible. Anyway, Calvin Benjamin, as I've been saying for the past couple of weeks, had an amazing game. 92 yards, 6 receptions, 1 touchdown. Everybody, if you haven't picked him up on your fantasy league, I'll remind you again, go pick him up because I was right.
Jeremy was right. Jeremy's always right. This team lost Steve Smith, who's been in Carolina for so long. I believe he's been there his entire career. It was just gone. Vapor.
Sad. It's sad.
To the Baltimore Ravens, and Steve Smith had a breakout game, and he showed, yeah, I mean something to these teams. I'm a good receiver. I'm a top premier receiver in the league still.
Excuse me.
These Carolina Panthers lost a big weapon, their best wide receiver, Steve Smith. And can Kelvin Benjamin replace the production of Steve Smith?
Yes, without a doubt. Calvin Benjamin is a 6'5" monster. And he has the hands at... If you didn't see the national championship game last year, where Calvin Benjamin caught the game-winning touchdown, he had to go up to get that, and he's 6'5". Think about that for a second. A 6'5" guy had to go up to get a pass. You don't hear that too often.
Yeah, you really don't.
But
He's
anyway,
truly
that's just showing that you can throw it up to Calvin Benjamin, and he's going to come down with it.
he's one more of those athletic basketball, like football players.
Yeah, and I think that you're going to look at Calvin Benjamin in a couple of years, and you're going to put him in the same conversation as Julio Jones, Des Bryant, and Megatron, maybe. I think he's going to be in that discussion.
It's quite a prediction, Jeremy. Megatron has had a big career so far. We're not going to get over to Detroit just yet. I know a lot of you people really are liking to see Detroit. Jeremy, Detroit was your sleeper pick last year, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
We'll get to them a little later in the show. Last year, Michael Vick got injured in week 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Nick Foles, out of the University of Arizona, came in and took the league by storm.
Yes, he did.
In the first half,
17
of
to nothing.
correct, you heard from Jeremy.
With
The
Chad
Jaguars
Henne
were up.
and the amazing offense of those Jacksonville Jaguars. Toby Gerhart, 18 carries, 42 yards. Racking up them yardage.
And
You know what? With all due respect to the Jaguars, even when they were up 17-0, I had faith in the Eagles that they were going to come back and win that game. Did you not?
I did have faith in the Eagles. The Eagles are too high-powered up in the offense. Now, Jeremy, the Oregon Ducks, their coach was Chip Kelly, who is now the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. They had a high-powered offense, a fast-tempoed offense, and an offense that worked. Team that scored a lot of points, and a defense that held opponents to a few points. Can Chip Kelly's mindset, his coaching style of this high-powered offense, we're going to go at you, we're going to run 100 plays a game, and we're going to blow by you in the fourth quarter because we're so athletic. Can this work in an NFL where your linemen are bigger, maybe not as athletic, your QB isn't as athletic? Can this work in the NFL? Can Chip Kelly's coaching style lead the Philadelphia Eagles to a Super Bowl?
Not necessarily to a Super Bowl, but I think they can consistently make the playoffs. Maybe make it to the NFC Championship game once in a while, but I don't think that they can make it to the Super Bowl with Seattle, the 49ers in that league, in that conference. I don't think there's any way.
Even in the next 10 years?
Oh, I mean,
if Chip Kelly stays around.
I mean, in the next 10 years, there's no telling what's going to happen. Nick Foles might not even be the quarterback anymore for the Philadelphia Eagles. You never know. Anything can happen.
That's true.
Yeah.
Now,
yeah, go ahead.
last year, LeSean McCoy had a big season. A lot of people were choosing him to be a top fantasy player. He only had 21 carries for 74 yards against a Jacksonville defense, especially a defensive line in Jacksonville that looks pretty darn good. Chris Clemens, Alan Branch, Red Bryant, all veterans who have played in big games. Is this Jacksonville defensive line starting to be in the same talk as these other defensive lines, like St. Louis, Seattle, Detroit?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that. I think those are on a whole different level than where these guys are.
Okay. Well, now, Jeremy, I picked the last 2 games. You can choose.
Yeah,
a game
you're
now.
jumping all over the board, man. Why don't we go in order? I mean, I gotta like check off the ones that we've already done. You're making me do more work here. Come on, Ian. No one wants to do more work. It's a school week.
I guess I'll choose.
No, Ian, please. Let me Vikings and Rams. Let's go in order. Cordell Patterson, 3 carries, 102 yards, and a touchdown. He's a wide receiver, guys, if you didn't know that. He's the leading rusher on the Vikings right now.
The St. Louis Rams team, minus Sam Bradford.
Even with Sam Bradford, they're nothing. They're a defense.
I'm thinking that they are going to go. They are going to finish with the worst record in the NFL this year.
And then they'll be able to take Jameis next year.
That's a very good point, Jeremy.
Mm-hmm. And they'll be done with Mr. Bradford.
This was the last straw for Sam Bradford, I believe.
Poor guy, though. Seriously, poor guy. I mean, he's just had so much problems with his knees. I feel bad. I feel so bad for him.
When he does play, he's such a good QB. He has the ability to lead a team to the Super Bowl, and one day I believe he will get a ring. Maybe not as a starting QB, but a backup. He's a good QB. I think we can each give him that. He was a good college QB, and the brief NFL career and the brief games we've seen from Sam Bradford, he's shown some promise. Now, Jeremy, enough about the Rams. The Minnesota Vikings won 34-6 in St. Louis, which is hard no matter what. Going into opposing team stadium is always hard to blow a team out of it. And Minnesota did it. Is Cordell Patterson, is he going to be one of these next premier receivers? Is he the next Percy Harvin?
I think so. And the Vikings are really good at finding talent like that, where people who can run and run the reverse and also run downfield and make spectacular catches. You know what? Props to Minnesota because they keep finding talents like that. Cordell Patterson also, he's all right. Listen to this. Adrian Peterson had 21 carries and 75 yards. Cordell Patterson 3 carries, 102 yards. I mean, when your running back doesn't have more rushing yards than one of your wide receivers does, then something's going on. But, this is Adrian Peterson. Obviously, he's going to have his games.
Yeah. Enough about these teams. Let's move on. The Money Browns.
Money team. Only lost by 3, and it went to overtime there, Ian.
They did. This Cleveland Browns team isn't looking too shabby. They played against a good Steelers team. Ben Roethlisberger, one of the better QBs of the last 10 years, had a good game. He had 365 yards passing. He did throw 1 interception, but Le'Veon Bell, 21 carries and 109 yards. Is he one of these running backs who could start to take form like a young Marshawn Lynch?
If he stays out of trouble. That's just point blank. Now, instead of talking about Le'Veon Bell, let's talk about someone who no one's talking about at this point, Terrence West. Everybody thought that Ben Tate would be the starting running back for the Cleveland Browns this year. Now, Terrence West had 16 carries and over 100 yards. Ben Tate only had 6 carries for 41 yards. Who's this Terrence West guy, and where did he come from?
I tell you, he's coming onto my football team right now because I'm just picking him up.
Who are you dropping there?
Ben Tate.
You're dropping Ben Tate?
Yep.
When I said, what's going on with Ben Tate? You were like, oh crap, I gotta drop him. Anyway, no.
Jeremy knows all.
Yeah, Jeremy does know all. Everybody listen to me. Hey, Calvin Benjamin, Terrence West. Go pick him up right now. Anyway, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see the Browns be a team that can give a lot of contending teams some troubles this year. I don't necessarily see them winning that many games. I think they'll be in a top 10 draft pick again. But, yeah, watch out for these Browns and watch out for Mr. Money starting week 5.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that one. Let's move on over. Let's start this lightning round now, just like we do in all the shows. We'll get to our lightning round.
Yes.
The Oakland Raiders and the New York Jets.
2 very stinky teams. Jets stink. Raiders stink. Raiders need to figure out their running game. McFadden, 4 carries, 15 yards. That's just terrible when you have Maurice Jones-Drew also on that team. You can't get over 15 yards. Come on, man. Geno Smith, as much as it pains me to say it, had a very efficient game. 23 for 28, 201 yards, 1 touchdown. Very good for him. And Mr. Ivory, 10 carries, 102 yards, and that long touchdown that he had. Very good job by the Jets this weekend, as much as it pains me to say it.
Yeah, it really was. Eric Decker had a big game, 5 receptions for 74 yards. Geno Smith looked good, 23 out of 28. Derek Carr also looked good, 20 of 32 for 150 yards with 2 touchdowns. Moving on over, the Cincinnati Bengals playing against the Baltimore Ravens. Now, I want to say this first. I want to see if you agree with me, Jeremy. Anytime you have a player like Ray Rice, who's been a focal point of your team's offense and of your city for the past couple of years, and he's suddenly convicted of, or not convicted, he's in suspicion of domestic violence or beating his wife. It's got to cause some disturbance in your locker room. Got to cause some disfocus.
Yeah. Well, you know, they're all focusing on football. I don't know if it's all about the distractions in the locker room, all this. They're focusing on football. They don't care about all that. If he comes in the locker room and starts to be around all those guys, obviously they're going to think, oh, this guy, you know, he did this, he did that. But, you know, just, I guess it could be an issue in some locker rooms, but not the Ravens. They're too much of a tight-knit group to get away from football.
Now, the replacement for Baltimore, Ray Rice, looked to be Bernard Pierce, but Justin Forsett,
yeah, where'd this
has
guy
11
come from?
carries for 70 yards.
Yeah, had a heck of a game. 1 touchdown also.
A surprisingly good game. Gives some promise to the Ravens' rushing game against Cincinnati defense, whose focal point is the defensive line stopping run with Vontaze Buffett and Geno Atkins. Each of these quarterbacks had good games, each throwing for over 300 yards. Given their completion percentage wasn't very high, Joe Flacco just a little bit over 50%, and Andy Dalton also a little bit over 50%. These teams each look poised to have good seasons in my mind.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree, but I also disagree because I don't think the Ravens are going to make the playoffs, and I think the Bengals run away with that division. I don't think the Steelers are as good as people think they are.
Now, let's move on to Soldier Field in Chicago, Illinois. Chicago Bears were taking on the Buffalo Bills. Game many people thought the Chicago Bears were going to run away with. A team that is looking to have one of the better offensive years. They've had Alshon Jeffrey, who's looking like one of the best receivers in the NFL. Brandon Marshall, who we all know and love. Martellus Bennett is looking like another top tight end. And Matt Forte. It all comes down to Jay Cutler.
Yeah.
Can Jay Cutler not be Jay Cutler?
He had a heck of a game, though. 349 yards and 2 touchdowns.
He did throw 2 interceptions, though, and that's
That's what killed them, yeah.
It's Jay Cutler and the turnovers. Just like Tony Romo. Tony Romo can throw for 400 yards a game, but he'll throw 2 interceptions. Those 2 interceptions are going to be at key points. They're going to be in the fourth quarter, 1 minute left, down by 3. And this Chicago Bears team is looking like they could win this NFC North.
Yeah. But now they go on and lose to the Bills. And, it's all about E.J. Manuel. My boy E.J. Manuel, 16 for 22. Very efficient game in this game. 173 yards and a touchdown. And also, watch out for Robert Woods. He might have a really good year this year. And once they get, what's his name back? The wide receiver out of Clemson back.
Sammy Watkins.
Yeah, once he comes back, watch out for this team. Don't be surprised if they beat the Dolphins next week, as much as it pains me to say. I don't think they'll beat the Dolphins, but they're going to put up a fight.
Let's move on over to the worst team in the NFL last year, the Houston Texans taking on RG3 in the Washington Redskins.
Getting off to a good start, huh?
I wouldn't say as good of a start as they hoped. Jadeveon Clowney is looking to miss 4 to 6 weeks with knee injury. That's terrible for the Texans. First overall draft pick plays 2 quarters, and you lose him for 4 to 6 weeks. And this team is built around their defensive line and J.J. Watt. If J.J. Watt cannot cause havoc, this team doesn't win games.
Yeah, but huge loss. Jadeveon Clowney, first career NFL game, going out with an MCL. He had arthroscopic knee surgery yesterday. He'll be out for 4 to 6 weeks.
You know who looked like the old man we saw earlier in his career? Arian Foster. 27 carries, 103 yards.
Yeah,
quietly,
he had a pretty good game.
Quietly one of the better weeks in the NFL. And on the other side of the football, Alfred Morris, 91 yards rushing. These teams are looking pretty good.
Yeah, but RG3 couldn't lead his team to victory in this one, and that's just something. What happened? Did they miss an extra point in this game? Blocked. The kick was blocked. The extra point was blocked. So, I mean, RG3 just needs to play better, and we need to see the RG3 that we saw before he tore his ACL.
Yeah, let's move on over now. This isn't one of those premier matchups in the NFL. Tennessee Titans going up against the Kansas City Chiefs. Chiefs had a good year last year, but now people are starting to say, oh, this is the real color of the Chiefs. They're not this good. They're not going to be able to rival the Broncos for the AFC West. This team is the third best team in the AFC West alone. Alex Smith last year looked like a fluke right now. On Sunday, he went 19 of 35, 202 yards, touchdown, and 3 interceptions. Not very good numbers for your starting QB any week.
No. But, we said we're going to go on a lightning round. Let's move on. Let's go to Titans and Chiefs, okay?
That's where we are.
Oh, sorry. I was distracted by my mother. She said we were being annoying or something. My bad. So, Titans and Chiefs. We're talking about Alex Smith had a terrible game, right?
Uh-huh.
How many turnovers?
3.
3. How many interceptions?
3.
That is right. Alex Smith, you got to have a better game, bro. Come on, what are you doing? And where the heck is my boy Charles? What is he doing out there? 7 carries, 19 yards. What's going on? Come on, Jamal. Alex Smith needs to play better. Jamal Charles needs to play better. And this team got a wake-up call losing 26-10. A lot of people picked this game as their upset pick, and they were right.
They really were. This Tennessee Titans team is really looking to improve off of, I'll say, a bad 2014 or 2013 season.
Yeah.
And Jake Locker's looking like a pretty good QB right now. Let's move on over to our next game. We're on to San Francisco and Dallas.
Yeah.
Covered them a little bit earlier. Gone over the 49ers a little bit.
Tony Romo, man, needs to stop throwing interceptions. Des Bryant needs to stop being baby and get back on the field instead of going back in the locker room every 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It's a prima donna team, honestly. Like, this team needs to get a wake-up call, and that's what they got this weekend. 28-17, and Romo threw 3 interceptions. This team is not good. Their defense absolutely terrible. Wake-up call is an understatement, and to see all those Niners fans at AT&T Stadium, I mean, that's gotta make any football player look around and say, wow, we need to step it up a little bit, because our fans are turning on us and we're getting outnumbered in fans at our home stadium.
Even in Texas, where football's life.
America's team, quote unquote.
This Dallas team for so long has been 8-8. Is it time for Tony Romo to be kicked out?
I mean, for who? Who's gonna step up? I don't see anyone who can step up. Tony Romo's the quarterback for now, and he just needs to stop turning the ball over. Stop listening to all the stereotypes. Like, everybody says, Tony Romo, he throws so many interceptions. They're making all the jokes. I think he's buying into all that. I think he's just... It's in his head. He needs to stop thinking about it, go out there and just play football.
That's a good point, Jeremy. Let's move over to the Monday night game. Talked about this earlier. The Detroit Lions and the New York Giants. Matthew Stafford, 346 yards, 2 touchdowns. Calvin Johnson had a very big night. 7 receptions, 164 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I had him on my fantasy team. I was more than happy with Calvin.
Me too.
Jeremy, is this Detroit team for real? Are they as good as they seemed on Monday night?
Yeah, I think so. If they continue to throw the ball to Calvin Johnson, then they'll be golden. And you know what? I think Reggie Bush had a terrible game, but he is a running back to watch for this season. And just keep feeding him the ball. He'll be fine. But on the other side of the ball, or on the other side of the field, you had the New York Giants. And one person who had a really good game was their newly acquired tight end, Larry Donnell. If you don't know him, you should. Go pick him up on your fantasy team, because he's going to become one of Eli's favorite receivers pretty quickly. He's very tall. He can catch the ball. He can go up top to catch the ball. So, 6'6". So, that's all you need to know. Go pick him up on your fantasy team. That is your backup tight end, and you'll thank me later.
Now, what about this New York Giants team? Eli Manning, terrible season last year. Lost Hakeem Nicks. This team doesn't look like they're going to be too good this year, Jeremy. Look like they've started to fall off the table.
Oh, the
New York Giants.
Yeah, Giants. Makes me kind of sad, because this team, they have a lot of talent, and they thought that they upgraded in that offensive line area, but obviously not, because Eli, he never gets the credit he deserves. Eli is always getting sacked out there. He's always running for his life, and it's sad to see that they put all of their draft picks in the past few years into offensive line, and it's just not working out. You know, it's almost Eli's time to retire and get out, or whatever you want to say. But you need to send him out on a good note and stop just give him a good offensive line to work with, and he can zip the ball out there and make good decisions.
That's a good point. Let's move on over.
Instead of running, one more point. Instead of running for his life, trying to find a receiver and forcing passes, he needs to be able to stay in the pocket and find the right receiver to throw to.
That's a good point. Let's move on over to the last game of NFL Week 1. Our last Monday night game. San Diego Chargers going to Phoenix, Arizona to face Arizona Cardinals. San Diego had a 17-6 lead at the end of the third quarter. And, well, you know, Carson Palmer and the Arizona Cardinals came back and won 18-17. Now, each of these teams, San Diego and Arizona, look to have good years. People have been saying, Arizona's one of the better teams in the NFL, and San Diego is the biggest contender to Denver to win the AFC West, and they are a legitimate threat. Jeremy, after saying that San Diego's a legitimate threat, how do you feel after this game? What you saw from Phillip Rivers?
I think the Cardinals are a legitimate threat. I don't think San Diego is.
Now,
I mean, I think San Diego may be able to threaten Denver and play them hard at Mile High, but other than that, I don't see them making the playoffs again this year. They barely squeezed in. It had to take 2 Dolphins losses to 2 pretty terrible teams last year for the Chargers to get in.
Now, when I say the Arizona Cardinals, who do you really think of? Who comes to mind?
Fitz.
In this game, Mr. Cardinal, Larry Fitzgerald, had 1 reception for 22 yards. But you know who had a big game? Michael Floyd.
He's a
5
beast.
receptions for 119 yards.
Yeah.
Michael Floyd had a big, big game. And if they can get this production out of him alongside a surefire Hall of Famer and Larry Fitzgerald, this team is set. 2 of the best receivers in football if Michael Floyd can keep playing at this level.
Yeah.
Now, Jeremy, one more point before we make our way over to the end of the show, sadly. Even though the Arizona Cardinals are in the NFC West and are most likely the 3rd best team in the NFC West, can they be the second wild card team?
I don't see why not. After winning, I think it was 11 games last year, they're not looking to have any letdown this year. They're looking to improve from last year. So,
now,
yeah, go ahead.
I think that's it from us here at the Coast to Coast Show.
Yeah.
Minus Isaac Glasser.
Tear running down my face right now. Isaac, we
Jeremy,
miss you.
take us out?
Well, we Isaac, we'll let you take. Isaac, you there? Can you take us out? Oh, thanks, Isaac. You did a great job. There you go. Sadly, Isaac couldn't join us tonight, but he'll definitely try to be on with us next week, right? I think that's true. That's the truth.
That's the plan.
All right. We'll try and make that happen for you guys next week because I know you like having all of us together, and we love doing it together too. Being able to do what we love and have everyone listen to it, and being able to be with our friends doing it. That's just what it's all about, having this experience. And we thank everyone for listening. Go Dolphins, and Ian, go Seahawks.
How about them Hawks?
I'm Jeremy Schnell.
Ian Martin.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Live from Los Angeles, we thank you for listening to another presentation of the National Sports Radio Station on Spreaker.com.